Hey guys, Visions of Matt here, and I just wanted to share with you guys an important date that had just passed a few days ago. It was 9/9/19. It was the 20th anniversary, wow, I can't believe it's been 20 years already, of the Dreamcast release in the United States. But let me just say that the Dreamcast release date in the United States, one of the coolest release dates ever, just because it was 9/9/99, and that was just an infamous date. I mean, it can't get any better than that, right? The quadruple nines. But the Dreamcast is an interesting console. Let me first talk a little bit about the controller. The controller was great. I mean, it was one of my favorite things about the Dreamcast. So there's a lot of people out there that hate on the Dreamcast controller. Personally, I liked it. I mean, what I liked about it was the D-pad. The D-pad is smooth as silk. I mean, it is just so comfortable, easy. It's great. It's easy to use. It's great for a lot of different games that are more like 2D versus 3D. So you have yourself covered on those types of games. This joystick is pretty good too. It's not as good as, say, the PlayStation one, I don't think, although some might argue that they like it a little bit even better than the PlayStation one. The reason I prefer the PlayStation joystick is because the analog stick has like more of a rubber feel, and this is kind of just like plasticky, but it does have some grips in there, so that makes it pretty comfortable still. So it's pretty good controller. The 4 buttons are nice. I like the different colors. It makes it real obvious, you know, AX or ABXY. But the triggers on the Dreamcast controller are really great. They just have, they're kind of pressure sensitive. So like if you're playing a racing game, and this is like the gas, for example, you could do a little gas more and more and more, and then you could floor it. And I believe this was one of the first consoles that had trigger or pressure sensitive triggers like that. Of course, you can't talk about the Dreamcast without talking about the VMU memory card that you used. And the cool thing about this memory card was it plugged into the top of the controller like this, just slides right in. There's actually room for 2 of them in case you have a lot of stuff you need to save. But then this also becomes a screen as you're playing the game. And then when you take the VMU memory card out, there's some games that let you play little mini games on the go when you walked around and stuff. I mean, that's insane. That's just so cool that they did that. Like, I still haven't seen any type of thing, any device that is connected to a console in any way quite as cool as this in all these years. And also, if you have 2 of these, they just kind of connect right here in the back. I only have one, so I can't show you, but you can play each other like in certain games, player versus player like that with them connected. You don't need a cord or anything. I mean, that is just one of the coolest things I've ever seen. The VMU. So that was another thing that I loved about the Dreamcast. The console itself, you know, it's pretty solid design. It's kind of boxy. It has some nice curves to it though. It has the 4 controller ports, which is great for multiplayer. Power button, eject button. And then this thing takes, I believe they're called GD-ROMs. It was like Dreamcast version of CD-ROM, but it holds a little bit more than the CD-ROM. Whereas CD-ROM only holds like 600 or 700 megabytes, the GD-ROM holds 1 gigabyte of memory. So you can fit a little bit more on these games because, you know, the graphics are pretty great. And speaking of the games, the original game lineup for this was incredible. There was actually 18 games that came out in the United States. That's huge. Like, I don't know how they got that many games to release. Maybe they were working on a lot of them in Japan or something at the time, and they were all ready for the United States release. But Sega at the time, they're like, you know what, we can't screw this up. They had just come out with the Saturn, and that just failed miserably. It did not do well, and they had to come out with a really incredible product. And maybe that's why they focus so much on the games and the hardware of this thing to try to really make it shine. But yeah, 18 games. But I'm actually just going to go over a few of my favorite games right now for the Dreamcast on this special edition of this video as I talk about 20 years with the Dreamcast. One of my favorite Dreamcast games, of course, is Sonic Adventure. And this is one of the first Dreamcast games that I got with my Dreamcast. And it's just a great introduction for Sonic to get into 3D. I mean, there might have been some attempts on previous consoles with Sega trying to get them in 3D, but this is really a true first 3D game for Sonic. And, you know, you could run around different levels. It was incredible to be able to play Sonic like this when you're just used to him running around in, you know, 2D and then all of a sudden 3D. And the controller works great for it. So I love Sonic Adventure. All right, this is probably my second favorite game on the Dreamcast. Crazy Taxi. I mean, it's just such a fun game. It's an arcade style game, and I think I first played it actually in the arcade at a movie theater. They had one of these, and I was like, oh, this is so much fun. You just go around, drive around the town, pick up people, you have to get them to their destination, and you get tips and stuff. The faster you go, and the more accurate you are when you get to your destination. And then eventually time runs out and your game is over. But you try to see how high your score can get. It's just such a fun game. They're like the different people, they say different things while they're getting in the car. Like if you drive recklessly, they say crazy stuff like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I think there's 4 different players you could choose from when you first start the game. But yeah, Crazy Taxi is one of my favorite Dreamcast games. Got a little Daytona action. Daytona, you know, it's just a fun arcade game. And that's what the Dreamcast really, when I think of Dreamcast, I really think of a lot of really great arcade ports that came over to us at our on home console on our home console of Dreamcast. Just a lot of great arcade ports because arcade games look so good, and then when they made Dreamcast as powerful as they did, it made it possible for us to play a lot of these great ports at home. I mean, we were able to do a little bit on the Saturn, but it just didn't look as good as it did on the Dreamcast. So Daytona is another fun arcade port, great racing game. Virtua Tennis, awesome game, sports game, you know, it's a tennis game. But the controls are done really well, the graphics are beautiful, it looks great on your home console, on your Sega Dreamcast. They made a sequel to that as well, but I don't have that one. Sega Rally, another great arcade port that they brought over to the console, and it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like Daytona, except where it's more like rally racing, you know, off-road, a lot of curves and bumps and stuff. Not a lot of people like this game. Personally, I really like this game. I played in the arcade, and I had to have the version that came out on Dreamcast. Eventually came out on like PlayStation 2 also, but I think it even came out on GameCube. But yeah, this game is really basic. I mean, you're driving a truck along on highways and stuff, and there's like a few shortcuts, and you have a rival truck that you're trying to beat, and it's just a really cool game. I just enjoy it and just really try to get the highest score. It's not really, you know, there's not that much to this game, but it's still fun. And last but not least, I'm going to show you Sega Bass Fishing. Just a fishing game, and it's pretty cool. So yeah, a lot of these games we'll show you, they're pretty simple games. You know, they're like arcade ports. They're pretty simple. Sega was known for making some great arcade games, but yeah, it's just a fun fishing game. There's even a fishing rod you could get for your Dreamcast, and you can actually like wind it and stuff. I almost bought it one time, but I think it was like $50 or something. It might be kind of rare, so I didn't end up getting it. But why did the Dreamcast fail? Well, basically, I think that the Dreamcast failed because the competition was really fierce that generation. You know, they're up against the PlayStation 2, arguably one of the most, if not the best console of all time. I mean, if you look at the numbers of sales of the PlayStation 2, it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's like well over 100 million. And a lot of people use the PS2 as a DVD player. I know I did when I first got it. But then after they got it as a DVD player, like, oh, you know, this thing can play some pretty cool games too, so might as well get some games for it. And the PS2 lasts a long time, and it was hard for Dreamcast to compete against that. The GameCube also came out around the same time. A lot of loyal Nintendo fanboys only played GameCube, so that probably hurt the Dreamcast sales a little bit too. But yeah, really the PS2 is probably what hurt it. It's a great console. It was just a little bit too late for Sega to come out with this. You know, if they had come out with this like a couple years earlier, maybe even if it wasn't as powerful, instead of the Saturn, something this cool, then maybe it would have been a different fate for Sega. But unfortunately, things didn't really work out that way for them, and they just had to focus on coming out with games only. But yeah, that's really all I got today about the Dreamcast. I just want to talk about it a little bit as we pass upon 20 years of that 9/9/99 date. And let me know what you guys think of the Dreamcast in the comments below. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about it, if you have any cool memories with the Dreamcast. I know I do. But thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. See you later.